Welcome to the Get Real with King Arthur show. Thanks for listening. Our records show that up to over 100,000 little peeks into our show have occurred, and some more than just a peek. Well, that's very heartening. Thank you. Well, I'm on this kick, as they say, on writing poetry. And I start off by saying, you are all experts in language. Move on from chit-chat to saying more significant words. And I tell you that my two brother-in-laws wrote poems to my sisters that are beautiful, and that neither is a trained poet of any sort. Then we talked about, last time, how to start writing a poem. Where do you start? You start with emotion, a feeling. And by the way, I think that not only all poetry, but all writing should be part of man's search for meaning. We write to improve our lot and the lot of those around us. So, in that case, we start with emotion, and we are honest. Not what we should feel, my friends, but what we actually feel. And then we don't necessarily say the emotion, but we work to change or to emphasize the emotion. And we talked about I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth, and said that he began with loneliness. I wandered lonely as a cloud, and moved by the sight of the daffodils in thousands by the lake to get rid of his loneliness. And it worked. Now, I was thinking of the structure of that, which is the problem, and what aided him. But in looking at other poems, I see that poems are like building a house. You don't have the same building every time. And there are varieties of structures, but it must be a structure. So much of poetry that I read seems to be only sentences. For example, this might be a poem. I looked out my window and saw the red maple leaves with the yellow ones. Well, that's a statement, and it's a pretty picture, but it's not a poem. What about it? And you have to move from left brain, which is sentences, to right brain, which is text. Say something about it. What's it mean? Not just a picture or a thing that happened. What does it mean? If you might say something sad. I was at the deathbed when my father died, holding his hand. That's not actually happened with me. But what about it? So you can't just give emotional experiences or visual experiences. You have to move over to the right brain and build a structure. Now, there are all kinds of structures. I was thinking of some poems like To an Athlete Dying Young by A. Housman. And I haven't memorized it all, but it says, the day you won the town the race, they cheered you through the marketplace. Men and boys, shoulder high, you came. Then, without much transition, he says, now they carry you, soldiers, to a stiller town. They're carrying him out a bier to his grave. Now, those are two contrasting things. What does he have to say about that? Well, surprisingly, the truth that comes out of it is it's a good idea. You outlived your fame. Well, smart lad says, well, okay, it's a truth about life that fame does not last. You know, in the old days when they inaugurated a pope at the Vatican, someone followed, say, with a drum or something, saying, sic transit gloria, sic transit gloria, sic transit, this thus passes glory. And the truth is that you can't live on a past reputation. That's the truth. We have a structure. And then I was thinking of a great poem by Percy Shelley, who comes up with the conclusion in Hinton Intellectual Beauty, the awful shadow of some unseen power floats, though unseen, amongst us. It visits each human heart and countenance like summer winds that creep from flower to flower, like moonbeams that from some piney mountain shower. It visits each human heart and countenance. Then he says how he sought this. While yet a boy, I sought for ghosts, and he really did, down many a listening chamber. Helen, his sister, said they would get flaming liquid and carry, when he's about 10 years old, carry it through the hallway. I sought for ghosts down many a listening chamber, cave and forest. I called on names with which our youth is, poisonous names with which our youth is fed. I've been to Sunday school, church. I was not seen. I was not heard. When, suddenly, musing on the lot of human life, and in the month of May, thy spirit fell on me, I shrieked and gasped and cried out in ecstasy. And he says that, where art thou gone? He said, if you kept that sensation, that ecstasy, we would be immortal. Why does the sunshine not always beam a rainbow on yon mountain river? Why anything should fail that once was shown, while fear and birth and death cast such a shadow on the earth? Whereabout to think is to be filled with sorrow and leaden-eyed despair. Thou knowest that never joy illumined my brow, apart from hope that thou wouldst free the world from its dark slavery. Have I not kept the vow? You've outwatched with me the envious night. It's a fabulous poem. But he goes from the conclusion, the spirit floats among us. Now he wonders why it's not always constant. Where art thou fled? Why not always? It's a good question. And to think that somehow this gives meaning to life, this vision glorious. So we have the truth first, and then how we arrived at the truth, and then the great question, why does not last? So you build your own structure. And one thing that's important to know is that sometimes the structure begins with assumption, not stated. Every article in the newspaper, every text often begins with assuming that the reader or listener, there's something he does not know. And my two brother-in-laws told their wives that they loved their wives in a fresh way. I wish I had their language right now. So they're saying, assuming, why are they telling their wives? I'm told that women want to be told by their husbands that they are loved. But the poem doesn't begin with, I know I haven't told you that I love you recently. No, it just begins. It's assumed. That's assumed. So you build your own structure. And so you begin with your emotion and you wrestle with it to find meaning, to move beyond sentence to text. Every utterance that has meaning is text. It's not a poem if all you have is a sentence or an experience. And one of the reasons I'm talking about is when you read poetry, to look for these things. So you build your house, your structure. Now, we're going to move on to talk about decorating the house and intricacies and the stuff you use to build the house and the decorating. If you want to look at making a cake, it's the frosting and the decorations on the cake. So you can move beyond a sentence to say something about it. And you want to say stuff that it's man's search for meaning. That's what calls us to say something. It calls us to move beyond chit-chat and to go deeper than that. And you all can do it. So move to text, move to build a structure, and tell me how you're doing. Have a good week.